I will ensure America always has the strongest, most lethal fighting force in the world.
That part. So this part was terrifying. Harris can change Biden's policy on Israel by just upholding the law. It's that simple. That's what's crazy about it. Do you think they're avoiding saying arms embargo because they're afraid Iran will use that as an opportunity to attack when Israel is less defended? It will not get to that because an arms embargo and the Iranian attack literally is working hand in hand to get Israel to the table to agree to the terms of the ceasefire deal that we wrote. That's the point. That is literally the point. Do you understand? The threat of an arms embargo alone will cause Israel to recalculate, rein in its bloodthirsty agenda.
Steadfast in advancing our security and values abroad. As Vice President, I have confronted threats to our security, negotiated with foreign leaders, strengthened our alliances, and engaged with our brave troops overseas. As Commander-in-Chief, I will ensure America always has the strongest, most lethal fighting force in the world. And I will fulfill our sacred obligation to care for our troops and their families, and I will always honor.
That is nutty. Okay. When I first heard it, I could not believe it. Like, America has to be the most lethal. What do you think lethal is? What do you think most lethal means? It means like we're going to kill more people. A fucking Democratic candidate running for president should never say that. This is jingoism that you hear from some of the most aggressive Republicans. Like, this is like neocon shit. Like, there's a reason why we don't call the War Department anymore. We call it the Department of Defense. Okay. Words matter. Words have a tendency to hide the truth. This is unshackled. She's saying the quiet part out loud. That is fucking terrifying. Dude, she means defensively lethal, not offensive. Okay, dude. Yeah, when Trump says it, you play a fucking different tune though. Okay? That's the difference. When you guys hear a Democrat say it, you make up your own mind about it. You're like, oh no, it's different actually. She probably means like defensively lethal or some shit. It's just pure cope. So many libs on Twitter going, what do you think the military does? The mask off is crazy. This was one of the worst aspects of this speech. Her foreign policy was chock full of Western chauvinism, jingoistic sentiment, terrifying shit, actually terrifying shit. There is no reason for her to say anything like this, ever. That's crazy.
And never disparage their service and their sacrifice. I will make sure that we lead the world into the future on space and artificial intelligence, that America, not China, wins the competition for the 21st century, and that we strengthen, not abdicate our...
Yeah, that other part, liberals fucking chanting USA after she said we have to have the most lethal military force. What is this, bro? If you don't recognize how terrifying that is, that a Democrat is saying that and a room full of Democrats are cheering that on by going USA, USA, you've lost the plot. This is shit that you hear at a fucking Trump rally.
Global leadership. Trump, on the other hand.
Now, this is the other part of this that is scary to me. Her saying like, we got to have a lethal military. We got to fuck shit up. We got to have, we going to show the world who's got the longest dick. And then turning around and fucking talking about Iran, talking about China, talking about Russia. It makes me feel, and Iranian proxies. It makes me feel as though she's pushing for what is yet to come, gearing up the base to be open-minded to potential military incursions in the region at the behest of Israel. That is hawkish nonsense through and through, and it fucking terrifies me. At that point, we've moved past partisanship. We've moved past like her electoral chances, which many of you only care about. It also does have a capacity to negatively polarize people against the ticket in general, because that's what Hillary Clinton was doing as well. And Trump very effectively ran against Hillary Clinton as a peaceful dove candidate. Obviously, he was lying, but the fact that he was lying in that regard, in that direction, matters. Because Trump is doing that right now. He's saying that so many wars happen under the Biden administration, I will stop them. I will stop those wars. So from an electoral calculus, this gives Trump an advantage on foreign policy in the eyes of Americans. That's something that you have to remember. if you don't care about like the actual morality of the situation, if you don't care about like the fact that the Democrat is saying like, we're going to have a lethal ass military, we're going to shit up, we're going to kill Iran, we're going to do whatever the fuck we can. Like if that doesn't terrify you, because like what if she wins and then she does do that? Do you want that? Is that something you want? Is that something that would be good? At that point, what difference does it make? Republican or Democrat? On that front, they're just completely aligned, I guess. It's ridiculous. Most Americans oppose sending U.S. troops to defend Israel, poll finds. Just, you know, fun little reminder. American flag, chanting USA tax cuts, a secure border, freedom. Incredible to watch Democrats hijack symbols with terms of the conservative handbook only to empty them all of all content and wear around like a costume. See, this is not a good way to fucking argue against this. The correct way to argue against this for the Republicans is to say, Democrats are doing this. We're the ones who actually are committed to it. And you know that already. And the Democrats are terrified. This just comes across as petty and childish, where you're like, oh, they're stealing from us. Like, nobody cares. The most lethal military part is so scary because what can America do? Is there something worse than a genocide? Who knows?
President Biden and I are working around the clock because now is the time to get a hostage deal and a ceasefire deal done. And let me be clear, I will always stand up for Israel's right to defend itself, and I will always ensure Israel has the ability to defend itself, because the people of Israel must never again face the horror that it...
So do you understand? Like when you say, I will always defend Israel's like God-given right to defend itself, blah, blah, blah. When you say that, we know that Israel is not defending itself, okay? Like, is Israel defending itself over the course of the past 10 months? How can you say we always will defend Israel's right to defend itself and we will give them all the weapons to do so, and then simultaneously be like, and we want a ceasefire? There is no defense. There is no defense over the course of the last 10 months. It's just offense. This is basically her reiterating her commitment to blank checks to Israel.
At the same time...
Yeah, she then goes into the other side of the equation. Now, notice. Now let's hear how she talks about the Palestinians. Now, 1,200 Israelis were murdered on October 7. On the other side, since October 7, Israel has killed more than 40,000 Palestinians. Lancet estimations put it at 185,000 once the dust is settled. They've also destroyed the entirety of the Gaza Strip, like the entirety of the Gaza Strip.
What has happened in Gaza over the past 10 months is devastating. So many innocent lives lost. Desperate.
Innocent lives lost. So many innocent lives lost. So Palestinians, the words are important, okay? Words are very important here. When you say we're going to have a lethal military, that's important. That's different, right? That's different than saying we're going to have the most powerful defensive capability. Usually means the same thing, but it's important that she's like no longer even using the veiled threats.
Hungry people fleeing for safety over and over again. The scale of suffering is heartbreaking. President Biden and I are working to...
So wait, the scale of suffering is heartbreaking. Who's doing the suffering? How did the suffering happen? Who are the Palestinians fleeing from? Why are they hungry? You have to understand how this actually plays the role, speaking about atrocities in the worst possible way possible, running defense for Israel, even in this situation. It is a lie by omission.
End this war such that Israel is secure, the hostages are released, the suffering in Gaza ends, and the Palestinian people can realize their right to dignity, security, freedom, and self-determination. I will never hesitate to take whatever action is necessary to defend our...
So when she said that, I thought, oh my God, is she going to say to get Israel to like when she said, I will do whatever is necessary, I thought she meant she's going to talk now about like, you know, how she's going to get Israel to commit to a ceasefire. Turns out I was wrong. Turns out she was actually, once again, and I'm very fearful of this. I'm very fearful of what this spells for the future. She was gearing up for what America might do in terms of defending Israel.
Our forces and our interests against Iran and Iran-backed terrorists.
She means I will continue Biden's policies in the region. 4,000 Marines, aircraft carriers in the surrounding the Arabian Peninsula. I will use them. Get ready for that. And when she says she doesn't cozy up to tyrants and dictators, I find that rather strange. She's talking about a tyrant that she's cozying up to, Benjamin Netanyahu. So every part of this is just hypocritical, contradictory, and silly. It's utter nonsense. I said this last night. A fascist who's rooting for Trump is Netanyahu, but the Dems seemingly have no issues with sending him endless arms forever under the auspices of Israel's right to defend itself. That's a tyrant. Netanyahu's a tyrant rooting for Trump too. You love him. And that is far more consequential than Kim Jong fucking Un. Okay? What kind of juice, what kind of motion does Kim Jong fucking Un have in terms of American politics? If you believe that the Iranian Ayatollah, Kim Jong fucking Un, or even China for that matter, represents a grave threat to American interests or America in general, but especially Kim Jong Un and especially Iran, you have been duped. This isn't to like absolve them of like their own domestic affairs and their responsibilities internally. They're not great. They're dog shit. Okay. Autocracies, 100%. But like the idea that they represent a serious threat to America is insane. Also, in terms of cozying up to tyrants and autocrats and dictators, America has its fair share of Gulf monarchies that it is completely aligned with because it represents our interest in foreign policy in the region. It is ridiculous